Hi, it's Rob from the Brush and Boltgun. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to paint a Necron Warrior. The first layer that we're going to use is Citadel Canoptek alloy. I'm going to use this to do his face and also the shoulder blades, the shoulder armour pieces. I just want to give these a nice smooth layer. This miniature has been spray undercoated with Citadel Leadbelcher from the rattle can. It has been in a bit of a humid state when it was drying, and it seems to have dried without the shine that you usually get from it. So it does look a bit strange and grey, but it is Citadel Leadbelcher that's been sprayed with. Next up we're going to be using Citadel Runelord brass, and this is going to be to paint all of the armour panels on the rest of the Necron, including his rib cage there. This is a very quick and a very easy method of painting all the Necrons, so you can batch paint them, start to batch paint the rest of them, because it's relatively simple. It doesn't take too much effort to do, but it does get them looking great on the tabletop. Kind of easy enough to do quickly, but good enough to look good. So to save going over all those bones with the normal black paint, we're going to use the Citadel Contrast Black Templar and just paint all of the bits that we'd usually paint black using this. It does go straight into the recesses. It's very easy to work with, so it's very good for doing areas like this. Also slightly allows a little tiny bit of the metallic to show through, so you do get that kind of metal painted black look. So once you've finished painting all the bones and the joints and stuff with that, we're going to move on to the next layer, which is going to be Citadel Fulgurite Copper. Now I'm just going to use this on all of these little wires that are sticking out from all the joints that have been exposed, or frayed ones which seem to be poking out from different places. Also do these coils on the side of the Ghost Flyer. So I'm going to use Citadel Leadbelcher here just to go over all of the metallic parts on the Ghost Flyer there. Mainly just to give them the proper shine that it should have. As I say, I think it was a little bit too humid when I sprayed it. And when it's dried quite matte. I've had that happen with the Retributor armour as well. But just reapplying this quickly and gets it ready for us to apply some shading to. Next we're going to use a tiny little bit of Citadel Mechanicus Standard Grey just to do the rock under his back foot there. There's a tiny little scarab on there, so we're painting the scarab in the same colours that we're painting Necron. Just a little quick layer of Mechanicus Standard Grey to get that rock painted up. Obviously if you're painting the bases and the rocks on your miniatures different, then don't paint it Mechanicus Standard Grey. Next up we're going to use Vallejo White. This is just going to be to paint the tubes on the Ghost Flyer, and there's also one hanging down his stomach too. If you want, you can paint the spot on his eye as well. He's got a nice smooth layer of white on this tube and the one on his belly. We'll move on to the next one. We're going to start with Citadel Cryptek Armourshade. It's a wonderful shade, nice gloss, brown colour to it. You're going to paint all of the Runelord brass with quite a decent layer of it, and you're going to try and thinly apply it to the areas of the Canoptek alloy. So you get a slightly lighter shading on them. Put a bit too much on there, you can just wipe some of that off with the brush and use it on other areas that you need to put it on. Once you've applied all that one, we're moving on to Citadel Agrax Earthshade. We're going to use this to paint all the little copper wires that are hanging out of them. Now we're going to move on to Citadel Nuln Oil. I'm going to use the normal one, and we're going to paint this onto all of the remaining Leadbelcher that we've just reapplied. I've been using the gloss on the Space Marines to give them a bit more shine, but I'm using the dry one on this, the matte one, so that they stay a bit grim and gritty. So I'm going to start reapplying the colour to them now. I'm going to use Citadel Runelord Brass to start with. And the way I always highlight is you think about where the light's hitting it. So underside the leg there, you're not going to be putting any of the highlights or the colours back on. You're going to leave that shaded so it's a lot darker. And just apply more of it to the top edges of things and the sides that are going to be catching a lot more light. Been a bit badly put together there. He's got a bit of a gap down his side, but you can fill that with a little bit of paint as you're going along, or if you want to use a bit of liquid green stuff or the plastic putty, anything like that. Next we're going to be using some Citadel Canoptek alloy. We're going to start highlighting the area that we've just used the Runelord Brass. So again, thinking about where the light's going to catch it, you want to be using the Canoptek alloy on that. Maybe highlighting about a third of the area that you've applied the Runelord Brass to, and also any upper edges which may be catching the light. Now we're going to use a little bit of Vallejo Modeler Chrome. We're going to use this just to do little highlights. So you're going to do the underside of any of the little bits of battle damage on him. You're also going to do some top edges and some corners where the light's going to be catching him. Also the little pistons that are dotted around. So you've got like the pistons on the legs. You've also got one on each side of the neck. Just give them a good shine. You can hear background noise here. Apologies for that. It's just started really raining, quite heavy. And once you've finished all the highlights there, you can move on to the next colour. So next up we're going to use some Vallejo White. I'm just going to paint his eyeball there, which we missed out on the last one. And touch up the little tubes, just in case you've got any of the other colours on there. Now we're going to use a bit of Vallejo German Grey. I'm just going to highlight that little bit of his skull it's showing, and then highlight all of the areas that we used the Black Templar contrast on. So you're going to be looking at the top edges and the angles that are going to catch the light, and start highlighting them using the German Grey. Now we're going to go for a little bit of Citadel Mechanicus Standard Grey, and as well as re-highlighting the stone under his foot, which we've washed with the Citadel Nuln Oil, we're also going to highlight all the edges on the Necron too. It doesn't matter too much about doing the edges around those little globes on the barrel of the Ghost Flare, because we'll be painting them white shortly. You're just going to be doing the actual edges on the gun and some little highlights here and there just to make them stand out. Now we're going to use a little bit of Citadel Dawnstone. We're just going to highlight that tiny little rock at the bottom there. You can see the highlights that we've just done on the kind of bones of the Necron, the previous layer. Now we're going to use a tiny little bit of Vallejo White. This is just going to be to do a little bit of a highlight on this little stone. Nothing too much, you just want to be picking out some of the details to make them stand out. And when we come to do the base, however you do the base, you can blend that into the base material that you use. I tend to do nice little astrogranite bases because it's just a very quick and easy way to get a bit of texture on there. So now we're going to use a little bit of Vallejo White. we're going to start edging all of these little bits here. So you want to get a tiny little bit of paint on your brush and going right the way around the edges of the Ghost Flare, around each of these little globes, and getting each side of them, and also the little verticals that go around the barrel at the front and the back. And once you've highlighted all these edges, you also want to paint those globes on the barrel with white too. Now if you wanted to shade them a little bit, you could use like Dawnstone initially and then put the white on, but I've just gone for straight white. Now we're going to use some of the Citadel Tesseract glow, and we're just going to apply this on, and this gives the barrel that lovely glowing colour that you see. Really bright yellowy green. As I said, if you wanted to, you'd probably be able to put a little bit of Dawnstone on and a bit of white on top of it on these globes, and that'll give you a bit of a kind of shade when you're putting them on. But you don't really need to do that, I don't think. By using the Tesseract glow, you can put a little bit inside the gaps around the circle, and that makes it look like the glow from the circle is on the black. And then you've got that edge highlight which goes around the globes on the barrel. That makes it look like they're glowing too. So now where we've applied the Tesseract glow to the tube here, we're going to use some BL Tan Green shade from Citadel and just apply that to darken it up so it looks like it's a bit darker near the top and the far end, and leave a kind of line of the Tesseract glow fading into that BL Tan Green. I've done a little bit too much up the top there, so I do need to put a little bit of white on there and add some Tesseract glow to it again, but we can do that later on. Now with that on, we're going to use a tiny little bit of Vallejo White. I'm just going to put that little line on there, ready for a spot more Tesseract glow. Now you're going to use a tiny little bit of German Grey, and this is literally just to touch up the areas on top there. If you've made any of these lines around that are glowing and they're a bit too thick, you can just use a little bit of that German Grey just to thin them down by gently painting across the line. I'm going to add that tiny little bit of Tesseract glow again, just on this little downward bit here. Next up, we're going to use a little bit of Citadel Agrax Earthshade, and that is going to be to do some of the detail work on this blade. They've been out of a commission for quite some time, so we're going to dirty and grind them up a little bit. The armour's already quite weathered and a bit rough and ragged, so by adding a bit of Agrax Earthshade to these parts, it does make it look like it's been under the weather a little. I'm going to use a tiny little bit of Citadel Necron compound and just lightly dry brush around the edges to the Leadbelcher part, and this will give them a nice shine on the edges without too much effort. Like so. And that is the finished Necron. I'm pretty happy with how he turned out. It's a very, very quick and easy method, because obviously you're going to be painting quite a few of these for your army. So it's a very quick method, but I think the results are pretty good. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to some of our other social media linked below. Thanks very much.